Native American warrior women led their tribes into battle, negotiated peace with the United States, served as diplomats, and more, but they don't get the recognition they rightly deserve. Here are the stories of several of the most famous Native American warrior women. Colestah, a wife of Chief Kamiakin, is most famous for fighting by his side armed with a stone war club in the Battle of 4 Lakes. But she was also a talented medicine woman in her own right, and someone that many believed had psychic and mystical powers. When Chief Kamiakin was injured in battle, she was able to nurse him back to health using her medical knowledge. Many Native American cultures believe in psychic abilities, but this belief is largely misunderstood. Often, psychic abilities relate to knowledge passed down from person to person or the wisdom that a person holds. While she's often mentioned as one of the most famous warrior women, little is known about Colestah. After she died in 1865, Chief Kamiakin returned to his ancestral lands, where he later died in 1877. Kamiakin had 5 wives, many of them from different tribes. This may have aided their efforts to maintain peace. Pine Leaf, also known as Woman Chief or Fallen Leaf, was born in 1806 to the White Clay tribe. She was taken as a prisoner by the Crow tribe in 1816 by a father who had lost his son. It was fairly common for tribal members to adopt children in this way. She was only 10 at the time, but her new family raised her with a warrior's skills. Using her training, she killed 2 men in her first battle and captured several horses. Accomplishing such a violent victory, she was able to make a name for herself at an early age. Pine Leaf was considered a two-spirit, an individual who embraced both traditional male and female roles. Though she wore female clothing, she pursued male interests almost exclusively, and when she eventually became Woman Chief, she married 4 wives. Pine Leaf was eventually killed by the White Clay tribe, her people by birth, in 1854, but she became a mythical figure, not only as a woman chief, but also as both a warrior and negotiator. During her tenure as chief, she was able to broker peace treaties with surrounding tribes, even though her end was a violent one. Buffalo Calf Road Woman was a Cheyenne warrior who became renowned after the Battle of Rosebud. She's one of the most famous Native American warriors, known for saving her brother during the battle and being the only woman in her tribe to fight in the Battle of Little Bighorn. In fact, some people believe that Buffalo Calf Road Woman may have been instrumental in General George Custer's defeat. The Northern Cheyenne tribe's oral history recounts that Buffalo Calf Road Woman knocked Custer off his horse, leaving him vulnerable. According to a Cheyenne elder, they were to keep silent for 100 summers regarding that fateful day, which has obscured some of the facts. This silence was declared because the tribe feared retribution from the US government. Contemporary accounts of the time not only placed Buffalo Calf Road Woman at the battle, but observed that she was the only woman there armed with a revolver. This is key evidence, as several other people who claim to have killed Custer were not armed with a gun, and the doomed general is believed to have been killed by a bullet. Either way, she was almost definitely instrumental in the battle. Moving Robe Woman was also known as her Eagle Robe or Mary Crawler. As a young adult, she witnessed her brother, One Hawk, fall in battle, and then she saw her father, Crawler, preparing to fight. Upon seeing his bravery, she braided her hair and painted her face red, then mounted a horse and rode directly into the fray. She was one of the women who fought against General George Custer during the Battle of Little Bighorn, and like Buffalo Calf Road Woman, some believe she may have been the one who killed him. One warrior claims to have held Custer's arms as she stabbed him in the back. However, the details are murky to Custer's final moments, and it's unlikely that the truth will ever be revealed. Moving Robe Woman did reportedly kill one of Custer's men, Isaiah Dorman, in revenge for her brother's death. Little is known of what happened to Moving Robe Woman after these historic battles, but she was photographed in her 80s as Mary Crawler in a photo held by the Smithsonian Institution. So, though she may or may not have played a role in any major battles thereafter, she did live a long and proud life. Running Eagle's story is a compelling one, blending historical fact with mysticism. Running Eagle was also known as Brown Weasel Woman, and she was born into the Blackfoot Nation in the 1800s, but she became more interested in what were considered male interests such as hunting than female pursuits. She went on hunts for buffalo and once saved her father's life when they were ambushed by enemies. Ultimately, she became a successful hunter and warrior. After seeing her husband killed by a Crow tribe member, she spoke with the sun, which told her that she would be a fierce warrior if she never lay with another. The waterfall that she had this vision quest at is now marked as a historical site. Running Eagle did in fact become a warrior leader and conducted multiple raids. In one such raid, she was able to capture 600 horses. Eventually, she was killed during a raid on the Flathead Indians. As the story goes, some believe that she was killed when she broke her promise to the sun and slept with a man from her party. During the Bannock War, Sarah Winnemucca served as both scout and messenger. Of the Paiute tribe, she fought for the Native American land rights following the war. When her people were exiled to reservations in which they began to die of diseases, she testified before Congress. She lectured over 300 times about the injustice her people faced. Born sometime around 1844, she grew up and began working as an interpreter for Indian affairs in 1871. In 1878, she began working as an interpreter and a scout during the Bannock War. In one story, it's reported that she was able to save her father by traveling over 200 miles without sleep. Sarah was most notable for straddling the line between her tribal origins and her work with the United States. She was a peacemaker and desired for both sides to come to an agreement. Unfortunately, this didn't ultimately come to pass. In 1883, she wrote Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims, but the Paiute tribe was not allowed to return to its land despite congressional legislation. Dahteste rode with her husband and eventually joined Geronimo's band. She was known for being an aggressive and lethal warrior, but she also worked to translate, negotiate, and mediate. Many Native American warrior women are remembered for being both warriors and diplomats, and Dahteste was part of this group. In fact, some say that Dahteste and Lozen, another famous Apache warrior, were in a relationship. While they did fight together and were arrested together, there is little evidence to support the claim that they were in a romantic relationship. However, they were close, and an interviewer noted that Dahteste mourned Lozen's death until the day she died. Dahteste, like Lozen, is believed to have been two-spirit. She dressed and fought like a man for much of her life. Dahteste proved herself on the battlefield, fought side by side with other women, and survived her encounters with the settlers. With the nickname Apache Joan of Arc, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Lozen was known as a feared and fearless leader. She was both a medicine woman and a warrior, and was rumored to have incredible powers. She traveled with both Geronimo and Dahteste. Before that, she defended her lands with her brother against the U.S. Army. Before battles, the Apache would often pray for guidance. Lozen had the uncanny ability to use these prayer sessions to tell exactly where the enemy might be. Thus, she was known to be an excellent strategist. She also excelled at both riding and shooting. Lozen spent years in skirmishes and raids, eventually falling in with Geronimo until he surrendered in 1885. She was battle sisters with other Apache women, including Dahteste. After repeatedly coming to blows with the U.S. Army in battle, Lozen was taken prisoner. She died of tuberculosis in Alabama. Awashonks was the chief of the Sakonnet people in what is now Rhode Island. Born around 1620 and most active in the 1670s, Awashonks would eventually become one of the signatories of a peace treaty between the local tribes and Plymouth Colony. It's not known what her real name was. Awashonks was a granted title that meant she who is queen. When her husband died in 1660, she became the leader, but it's also believed that she held the position because of her strength and wisdom. She would eventually marry 2 husbands and have 3 children. Awashonks participated in King Philip's War, which is when she appears most frequently in records. She initially supported Metacomet's fight against the British colonizers, but then switched sides in a deal to protect her people from retribution and enslavement. The deal worked at first, but eventually her people were ultimately displaced, as were many other tribes, and some were enslaved as well. A tribal leader of the Navajo Nation, Annie Dodge Wauneka, was a different type of warrior. In 1951, she became the second woman ever elected to the tribal council. She spent her time on weekly radio broadcasts in the Navajo Nation about medical techniques such as vaccination. She eventually became the first Native American to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Wauneka was born in 1910 to the cliff-dwelling people of the Navajo tribe. She started her medical administrations at the age of 8 after surviving the flu. She then married and studied health, becoming an activist for the Navajo Nation. In 1918, the Spanish flu tore through the United States. The disease wreaked havoc throughout the already suffering Native American community. Thus, Wauneka's calling became to help the indigenous people learn more about health and public safety. Nanyehi, or She Who Walks Among the Spirits, was a Cherokee woman born in 1738. Nanyehi was influenced by her uncle, a Cherokee chief, to believe that the only way Native Americans would survive contact with the settlers was to coexist with them. She wanted to find ways to make peace between the people. When her husband was killed in a battle against Creek Nation, Nanyehi took up his rifle and fought until they were victorious, earning herself the title of Beloved Woman. She would go on to be named the head of the Women's Council and given a place in the Cherokee General Council. She was the first woman to be given that honor, which led to one of her descendants, songwriter Becky Hobbs, to write a musical about her.
She's not only remembered as an iconic historical figure with the Cherokee people, but she's also a pioneer for women in American history.
Nanyehi would eventually marry an Englishman and take his name, consequently taking the name Nancy Ward. She would continue to try her best to prevent violence between the Cherokee tribe and the settlers, once saving a woman from being burned alive and bringing her to her own home. Toward the end of her life, Nanyehi began to believe that the settlers would continue to take more and more land and pleaded with her people not to give up any more of it, but her protests were fruitless and much of her native land was sold. She died in 1822, living a peaceful life as an innkeeper. Toypurina was only 25 when she inspired a revolt against the Spanish in 1785. Though many denied their role in the rebellion, Toypurina proudly admitted hers. She famously said to them, quote, "Of course I did it." A medicine woman of her tribe, Toypurina had become defiant after witnessing Spanish brutality against the natives. At the time, 5,000 of her people lived in what is now the San Gabriel Valley in California. Many of the Tongva were left without land as the Spanish took over much of the resources within the area. Further, many of the native Tongva were converted into the Spanish faith. Now called Gabrielinos, they were seen as enemies by some. Those who were not converted felt these new worshippers disrupted the Tongva's native way of life. Toypurina took it upon herself to ally 8 Tongva villages against the Spanish. They intended to kill the leaders, but they were betrayed and captured. 17 of them were whipped in public as a warning. Toypurina, along with other leaders, was held for questioning. She was eventually imprisoned for a year and a half. Today, a 60-foot mural honors her memory and bravery. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about Native American history are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.